So you watched 3 movies in the Robe cinematic universe. The one that nobody ever said that existed.
Yes, I made that up. Well, because I found Demetrius and the Gladiators, and then it's like, wait, what's happening here? And then basically internet told me there's 3 movies.
So you think trilogy?
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. So really, the question is, what led up to them making these types of movies? Because these are not the only movies that had a religious tone, and they were set in the Roman era. Why were they steadily making more and more Roman movies, or were they already making them? And why did they need to have a religious tone to it? And there was like a sudden stop at some point as well.
Yeah.
So
this is actually not the first time it suddenly stopped or started again, because these things do come in waves.
Yeah.
And I think to start with the end, I think it stops because there is simply an enoughness to it.
Saturation.
There is a saturation to it. You've done it all. You've done it like two or 3 times, and there's just nothing more to say.
Yeah, I think the last one, that the major points have been made, and they've been made well by various movies, and to start remaking the same point
again and again,
that's too much of sameness. You can maybe do that as a television series.
Yeah.
But not as like yet another movie outside of this universe. They weren't into all of these sequels yet.
Yeah, but it's
Demetrius and the Gladiators is a very unusual sequel.
It's not the fact that it's sequels but it is the entire genre.
Yeah.
The entire genre actually ran dry.
Yeah.
And you have the greater genre of the historical pieces, and then you have the subgenre of the religious historical pieces, and that one was pretty short because it is a short genre. There's not that much there, and you wear it out.
Yep.
They actually wear it out, and then the greater genre of the historical pieces, it also got worn out. It's like the Fall of the Roman Empire, which is a movie from 62.
I'm guessing, yes.
62 is because
this is the same year that they made King of Kings.
Yeah.
So there was like, do pivotal pieces, and then where do you go from there?
But the Fall of the Roman Empire was already past its sell-by date.
Yeah.
It was already it did everything again, but bits of it of all the stuff that from Quo Vadis in 50. Quo Vadis was the start of these Roman epics, post-war Roman epics.
In the color talkie era.
In the color talkie era. So this wave of it, because there was also a wave in the black and white era, and there was a wave in the silent movies. So this wave started in 1950 when they were ready to do it, and they went off it, and all the way to 1962 when they did, in the Fall of the Roman Empire, they did everything you want in a Roman movie. Religious, non-religious, there's even Vikings in there. They put the entire kitchen sink in there.
Yeah.
Legitimately, because it is correct for the time. But it was the last, that was it. You're done after that.
The thing with that is, that's a Peplum. And the other ones were Hollywood movies. So the Peplums, the Italians loved this blend of Roman era stuff with the Christian Catholic religion. They loved that combo, and they started making them, and they started churning them out like hotcakes. Yeah. And they were Peplums. They were known as the Sword-and-Sandal movies. So when they refer to the Robe and Demetrius and the Gladiators as a Sword-and-Sandal movie, they are actually not Sword-and-Sandal movies, because the original definition of was that it was Italians making these types of films. Yeah, but and they were called Peplums. Yeah, and the Fall of the Roman Empire is actually an Italian-made movie, not a Hollywood-made movie. But the reason why I say this, because they did the same thing with the spaghetti westerns. You had the Man with No Name, and you had the ones with Clint Eastwood. They were the spaghetti westerns, and what they did is they did like everything that you would possibly want in a western you stick it in there. And once they did that, after that, there's nothing to say anymore.
Yeah.
You have done it all.
But the thing comes back to the beginning, because Quo Vadis is, yes, it is a Hollywood movie. It stars Brits and it stars Americans.
Yes.
It was filmed in Cinecitta in Rome. So Quo Vadis brought this type of movie to Italy.
Yeah.
And then the Italians,
loved it.
And they loved it. And that is something we don't know, or know less of it. They kept making them, even though the genre was over for Hollywood.
Yes,
they kept
they
not as lavish as Fall of the Roman Empire, because it had Hollywood money. It must have had Hollywood money, because it also had Hollywood actors, and
they
British
always
actors.
kept inviting American actors in their stuff. So yeah.
But after that, in Europe, they keep making these Sword-and-Sandal things. Yeah. Not always movies, but they changed the television at some point, because the difference between television and movies is not, in Europe, is not that great.
Yeah.
It is, the television thing is something that is going to be seen by a lot more people than a movie. So you want stuff to be on television sometimes. For the Italians, yes. An Italian miniseries.
For the Dutch as well. Yeah.
Yes, you will get to make a movie. It will go further into the world, but to make it popular in your country, television is the way to go, and that's the thing here. So that is also the stigma of in Hollywood. If a Hollywood actor goes on television in the 50s and 60s, his career on film is over, and that is not true here either. So you can be very easily be in either one of these things. So this genre just moved for Europe. This sword and sandal movies moved to television, and they kept making them. Yeah. And after and physically, after they did the Roman stuff, they started to do the spaghetti westerns for the Americans, because one of the things the people they did found when they did like Quo Vadis is that Cinecitta is smack dab in the city, so you have all the amenities, you have the great food, and you have willing people, you have carpenters galore, and you have the sun. You have all the amenities. You're smack dab in the middle of Europe. You can go anywhere within a couple of hours. You're anywhere in Europe.
You have mountains. You have sea. You
can
do anything.
Yes, and so it is actually, and you have that sun,
and
because
desert,
for the spaghetti western you need that sun, and you need that sun for anything Roman or Egyptian or Greek or anything ancient world. So it is perfect. And so it's not strange at all that they ended up in there, even though they have like California. But California is big, and there's wherever you go, you have to go a long way out. Then you have to set up your shop, do whatever, and then come back. And I understand why they prefer Cinecitta.
You can see the visuals that it just didn't have the sets in the Big Fisherman. You had a lot of desert scenes, which what it was written for, because it was Judea and it was Arabia. But if you would have had to find yourself some serious sets in order to film it, if it had been in a Roman city. Whereas the Robe and Demetrius and the gladiators, they were both set in Rome, and they were using the very same sets because it was the same production. So they were very clever about reusing all the beautiful sets that they made for the first movie.
And the thing you may not be aware of, the set builders in Hollywood were people who came from Italy, because they were too poor to live there, came in the 1900s to the States, wanted carpentry work because they were great carpenters, and they started building sets in Hollywood. And the carpenters they came originally from Italy, and the carpentry they still know that in Italy. So the Cinecitta has the same carpentry as Hollywood. So it was like a home away from home for the Hollywooders. And I believe it was possible to leave stuff out a little bit more, like they had a fixed
the
Rome's.
backlots.
Yeah,
the backlots.
Sure,
I mean, there will probably be guards and all sorts of stuff to make sure
Yeah,
that you can just.
and it's Rome,
If
even
you
though
find it back as you left it in the middle of your work.
Rome is really a strange place as an old city, because all old cities are usually very tightly built. But because there was a extensive period in Rome where it was just derelict for a long, long time, and then people had the entire Rome, the entire Forum Romanum, which is the original old Forum, was in somebody's backyard for a very long time, and that's why we still have it, because nobody ever bothered to tear it down, because there is a lot of space there. So Cinecittà has actually quite a bit of real estate. I've been there. I was there for a student trip, and we talked our way in. And there was nothing going on at the time, so that was fine. But you could see there was quite a bit of space to build sets for a longer time, and I think that's maybe a reason. And also, if you want to then go to the mountains,
it's not that far away.
The seaside is not that far away, and
seaside is super close. 2 types of sea in the Mediterranean and the Adriatic. And then the mountains, all you need to do is go up towards Switzerland. So
and it all looks very green and very different, and it does not look like California at all.
No.
So I understand that.
No, it doesn't. Yeah. They did go back after this long period of people not filming in Cinecittà, at least people outside of Italy, for the BBC series Rome. Yeah, they actually went to Cinecittà, and they used the modern concepts of what we know now that it should look like. So very colorful, lots of red, lots of mural drawings, paintings, and then after that you had productions like Doctor Who wanted to do an episode, and all of that. So people are
Gladiator. I think was also Cinecittà.
Was it?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Because you have that sun look, and you have all the amenities, and it makes sense to go there. I mean, in Europe, you actually have a few places you can go, but there's a limit.
It probably is always going to be Spain or Italy
if you need
of
sun.
The climate.
Yeah, if you need sun, because the Brits also end up in Cinecittà with Rome, because the series Rome, because in England it's going to be raining. You're going to be doing wet Romans.
And you cannot make anything else look like... Yeah, you can, but it takes a lot of effort.
Yeah, and you don't need to, because the sun shines on you for free. Yeah. And we've been in Rome in summer. There's nothing but sun. Yeah. It just beats down on you. Yeah. So you have it there.
And it's gorgeous. Do you remember if... you said Quo Vadis was in Cinecittà, but they also go Appia the Appia Road.
Yeah. They filmed as much as possible.
That was the real one.
Yes,
because we went 20 years ago. We went to Rome and we're like, we're going to the Via Appia Antica, because
there's a new one. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, there's gorgeous stuff to see. I mean, if I were to make a Roman film, and I do love these Roman movies, that's probably why I'm like, I miss them. Yeah. And I grew up watching these older Hollywood productions, and then they came around with Gladiator, and then that was a bit and then they made Troy, and then I thought, it's gonna be a new era of all these they didn't.
There was the 300, which you absolutely should not see, because it's absolutely the problem with the modern ones is that these old ones, like Quo Vadis, there's a scene in Quo Vadis, if you haven't seen it, at the end where the Christians are fed to the lions, basically. And they show it in 1950s style, which is not show. I mean, they show enough, and it's long enough, but they don't actually show anything. But now you have the ability and the technology to actually show somebody being rendered from limb by a lion. And the question is, I don't want to see that. and that's what these modern movies do. They will show you that, and I don't really need it to see that, because I can take that as read. I don't have to see it, but that's what they get there.
But I think it's expected now. I think the realism of atrocities and blood, guts, and gore war is they either they don't want to do the film or they want to do it and show everything.
Yeah.
And
but they will also get flack if they don't show if something was atrocious, especially if it's something that is we feel is atrocious, but they didn't at the time, like racism and stuff like that,
or even just the gladiatorial games. It's just. That's a point that I did want to get on, because there was, of course, a fair amount of segregation in Hollywood in the 1950s. It was not yet to the civil rights era, which is like late 60s, and so there was literally like there weren't spots for people of color in the films.
Yeah.
However, in these Roman era and other ancient era films, there are.
Yeah.
There is. Okay, most of the characters don't have a speaking role. A lot of them are the slaves and the servants and the this and the that.
And the second gladiator from the right and
yes,
stuff
yes.
like that.
However, in Demetrius and the Gladiator, we do actually have somebody who does become freed, and he is black and
speaking role.
And very, very much a speaking role. And then not billed as one, which I complain about. But so there were opportunities to put people of color in, and they did it actually in those films. They did it where they didn't need to, like a whole bunch of the servants. It's like, and that was how Rome was, because they did grab people from everywhere. Yeah. And just said, you are now slaves.
Yeah, it's not that they weren't racist, because they were.
Yeah.
But they were...
they were just trading slaves around. It's just...
Yeah, but there's an idea right now, people think that Romans were not racist. They were, they was just thinking about differently.
Oh, they were very much anti-Greek. Because of course they had
they've just
conquered the Greeks.
They were not racist in the way that we are in the modern day tend to be racist.
It's still racism.
They were racist and sexist and anti.
Very sexist. Like women can completely forget about any sort of. You were chattel.
Yeah, and these 50s and 60s movies then put in some black people. Specifically black people.
Yeah. But the other people of color as well. At least they were in there, and I'm not saying that that's good enough, but it's more than a lot of films were doing.
Yeah. But this
on set.
I do have to say that this is in a background that in the 50s, if it was like a regular film about regular people, there would be no black people in it. Zero. In the 30s, you make the same film about just a regular film about regular people. There would be some black people in it. They would not have much of a part, but they would be there. Okay. And that's the difference between the 30s and the 50s. And when that went away, I'm not sure. And then in the 60s, some point we started to see more coloring.
In Streetcar Named Desire, which is a film made after a long-running play, in 1947, they actually did have, let's call it, unnecessarily person of color speaking parts. Of course they were small, it wasn't the main cast, but it was like literally anytime they can put one person, we have to have a random person off the street. Well, they're in the middle of New Orleans and they are in the rundown area of it, and there's basically everybody's poor. The very logical that people around there would not all be white.
Yeah.
Considering the state of poverty and demographics and stuff.
Yeah.
And they were in the movie. And had speaking parts. Now, getting a speaking part is actually extremely important, because that means even if you have one line, even if it ends up on the cutting room floor, you can get your equity card from the Actors Guild of America.
It's now called something different, but it's still, I think the thing still applies.
What I don't know, though, is whether or not that was segregated as well, because that might have been legally segregated. But at least it was in there, and somebody put it in there, which I think was Elia Kazan, was it?
Yeah,
Well,
I believe so.
So some productions tried,
But it was hard for productions that were not like for now, but for historical. You can go whatever you want. And they had what the problem that Hollywood has always had, or it's a luxury problem, is that you have a great actor, but he is not 100% white. What do you do with him? Like a Yul Brynner or a Ricardo Montalban. They had so much problem putting Ricardo Montalban in something because he's not white enough to be...
The beauty is when they start creating roles.
Yes,
like,
for Yul Brynner they did so many roles.
Sidney Poitier.
Yeah.
Who broke effectively everything.
Yeah, but he was so black they couldn't go around him.
And they couldn't get around him because he was that good.
Yul Brynner, they put Yul Brynner in so many historical, Egyptian stuff.
Yeah, he was Ramses II.
Yeah, and he was in King and I. He was the king of Siam, and because he's a great actor, and you want to use him. But he's not white enough to make him the lead, the romantic lead in a regular thing. Yeah. Sidney Poitier is
and he did
way
become
not white.
The romantic lead in things,
yeah, but that's
awesome.
that's a full decade and a half later.
It's the 60s. Yeah,
it's the 60s and the late 60s is that.
And that is
because
we,
the early
we are
60s
talking about the 50s, like because in the 60s you do get a new version of Ben-Hur. Which you can clearly tell that is a different style production than all these productions from the 50s that we've been talking about. It's it's also a 4-hour movie, but everybody sits down for it.
I think it's 1959, that one.
Is it?
From the top of my head, yes.
We will find out when it says it right here.
And it's right at the end of it's right at the big finale of that era.
And that's it. If you have a couple of like literally, oh my god, we're now doing wasn't Ben-Hur also like 1926 if it had been 1 year later, they would have had a problem. In the silent era, and it was a good Ben-Hur. We watched it.
Yeah,
we watched it. We watched the German version, but that's
Yeah, that doesn't really matter for silent
era. But it's like I was surprised at how good that was. At that time, I mean, we watched it 25 years ago, but. It was extremely watchable.
It was basically the very first silent movie we ever watched.
Full one. I did watch the Son of the Sheik.
Yeah,
because I thought I'd at least want to know why all this hubbub about Rudolph Valentino. And they have a point. He is good.
Yeah,
he is very, very
he's
good.
also a case of Hollywood of this person who has it, and what do you do with him because he's still.
You want to bank the it. You want to make it bankable.
And he's in a way also not white enough. But
I don't know that they cared about that as long as it was
maybe less.
It wasn't like really brown skinned.
I think they cared a little bit less about the prettiness of their male romantic lead. Now we really want them to be really handsome and really pretty. And now we actually care less about the demographic as long as they're handsome and very handsome. But then I've seen a couple of silent movies since then where I go the leading man is but why?
Even in the Ben-Hur one I was absolutely I remember we were watching it and the Judah Ben-Hur comes on screen and starts having scenes and we're looking at each other going,
is that it?
What?
Is that it?
What?
Why?
And then after about 10 minutes, you're going. I'm in. I'm in for the whole here.
Now I understand why.
This is the right guy, and it is not a.
He's not big. He's not strong.
No. But he wasn't tiny or anything. But he was just like, okay, I don't know why they would choose, but a presence and. Oh my god, yes, you want to feel for him. And that is one of the roles that he actually has to fulfill other than he's a big, strong guy. You actually have to want to stay the whole course with him. And when they did they did sort of like a trilogy, I think, a TV version, a miniseries, way into like the 2000s. The 2010s maybe even.
Was it very good? It was
But I felt like they actually got more time to do Judah's story and go through all the ups and downs that he goes through. Especially the time that he gets to be with the Roman senator or whatever his position was, general, I think.
Yep.
And he becomes his heir. Actually, they take enough time to show why this man would make him his heir. The 1959 movie did a good job.
Yeah, that was actually
it's just a good movie.
Of that movie, that is my favorite sequence. That when he learns about Rome and the Roman lets him in. That I love that sequence.
And the guy genuinely liked him and wanted him to be his heir. There's a lot more to it in the. If you have more time, that's the thing. Is do you do a book like that? And a bunch of these are books. Quo Vadis was a book. The Robe, Ben-Hur.
Most of these things were books.
The long epic books, and try to squish that into a 2-hour movie.
Yeah, but if you do it right, and that's because we just did the review on the last of the Robe cinematic universe films. Yeah. is one of the things is that if you have a book, you have to have a good screenwriter who can make that into a movie, and I think it is possible. Yeah. It is possible to take a good book and make it into a good script, and then make it, and then other people have to make it into a good movie, but you have to do the script right. And it is a question of choice, because like the sequence with the Roman general and then adopting Ben-Hur, it was all there in that in a 59 movie. It is all there. Yeah. I got the gist of it, and yes, there's going to be more in the book.
How sincere it was,
and how sincere it was. It was all there, and it's in the writing and it's in the acting, and so it can be done. It's a movie shorthand for things. Yeah. To put an entire sequence that is in a book and make it into a couple of scenes, or maybe even a look in a movie, and do that right. It's possible.
That was brilliant about the opening sequence of The Robe. Absolutely brilliant.
Yes.
Just switch it on, and after the music stops, yes, I know the music is a big thing, and it was a very good composer, but it
was nice music.
It was nice music, but it kind of doesn't hold up. Yeah. But this is my personal opinion. But hey, I'm here for my opinion. Yes. But then it starts with voiceover of Marcellus talking about how opulent Rome is,
how wonderful,
and he's actually not. He's just saying
he's critically but wonderful. He did great things.
He knows this is the biggest civilization the world has ever known, in his opinion, and
no, he's not wrong.
Yeah, and he's saying that, but he's saying also there are more slaves in Rome than there are citizens, and we can basically just. I mean, he just goes on and on, but it is if you look at every single line that he says, it is so compact, dense, full with information, and he launches it into, then he turns around, and Caligula is here that isn't going to be happy to see me. And then you go into the marketplace. It's almost like the camera is doing it in one take. It's not exactly one. It kind of feels like one take. And then you see that what he's just told you, there's people being traded in the marketplace, and it's all about buying slaves and selling slaves, and then what the big dudes, which is he and Caligula, get to say about everything. It is
exposition done well.
And it's so compact, and it's just, if you just sit there and you let it happen, you don't even notice how much you're being given here and how clever that is, because I'd be hard pressed to write something like that.
Yes.
So
and that's why you pay your script writer lots of money, and then you pay Richard Burton to actually say the lines.
Hello. Now that's the thing that they did very often, very well in these movies. The choice of the main actors and also supporting cast.
And a lot of these, especially the Brits, were all trained in theatre. They almost all of them. I mean, everyone was a theatre person. So doing Romans, I mean, they'd done Shakespeare, which is roughly the same, to them.
Yeah, Richard Burton kept saying that he was wrong for the part, but then he turns around and he nails it.
Yeah.
Victor Mature never said such a thing, obviously.
Victor Mature,
and he just went and he did it, and he put the thing there, and everything they asked him to do, he did with gusto.
but they made sure that they didn't over-ask him. Which
They did over-ask him.
They did over-ask
yes,
him.
Yes, you can find on YouTube an interview with him about him. They're wanting him to stick his head into the mouth of a lion.
No.
And it's
No. For acting chops over-ask him. Like have him do something
and
he cannot do.
I think if your movie is well written enough, then you basically an actor who can act can put it there. But you do have to have the right actor for the part.
Yes.
And they had the right actor for the part. He was just 20 years too old.
Yeah, and
and they just plain ignored it.
Yeah, and I think that's
fine.
fine.
They did Gone with the Wind. They plain ignored it.
That's fine. I think that the audience can accept a couple of one or two incongruities in a franchise. You shouldn't overdo it, but you can accept that yes, Victor Mature is too old, but he's great for the part, so we'll run with it.
There was nobody else for the part. So
that's fine.
Some movies are made,
and same thing for Red and Scarlet and Ashley. They're all too old.
And the Cleopatra movie. They refused to make it without.
They knew that
Elizabeth Taylor.
And Elizabeth Taylor's much too old. Later, because the movie is actually about her entire life from when she was like 15 until her death. So once she gets to the later bits, she's better. But she's not 15 at the beginning.
You can never
and that's fine.
Yeah,
Everybody.
That's a question of makeup and acting.
And also to the point of accepting, because that film has a famous story, and it's a true story, that they had to actually stop production because she fell ill.
Yep.
And she was definitely ill. There was no she's getting belching or anything. She was in hospital. They actually had to cut open her neck.
And tracheotomy or something.
Tracheotomy, and she recovered, and it took time. But by the time she was ready to film, she still had the scar. They never covered it up. Now that I've told you and you watched the movie, you can see she has a scar, and that's fine for an audience to know that. I mean, if you didn't know that and you saw it, you would go, okay, and then maybe you look it up on Wikipedia or something. But it's fine. The human experience of storytelling is fine with having a little incongruity here and there. It shouldn't overdo it. You shouldn't. I mean, the Romans are played by Brits. The Egyptians are played by Brits and Americans. So there's lots of abstract incongruity anyway.
I think it really doesn't matter where the actor comes from, as long as they can say the line properly, because it is another continent and 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
So
and the sensibilities their sensibilities are going to be different anyway.
Yeah.
The idea,
and that I think is important to bring across, which I think the Robe did very well.
Quo Vadis too.
And Quo Vadis, yeah. And they actually said, okay, this is what Romans were. This is the kind of things that they thought was normal, and they prized these things. And this is how their society works. I mean, as much as you can fling into one movie. And then you go with that, and you take it. Shakespeare did it. He spent a lot of words on explaining how Romans in Julius Caesar, how Romans
thought about kings and about republics.
Why do we want a republic? Why do we have republicans and we've got people who want Caesar to be an emperor or king, whatever they were offering him? Emperorship, I think.
Yes, imperator. Yes.
Yeah. And
a dictator probably.
No, he was already dictator.
These names that we use now for other things or in Roman times were quite different. But they offered him. Actually, Shakespeare is actually not clear on it, so they talk about a laurel wreath and a crown. I think he was trying to not have to explain what imperator is and what dictator is and all these things, because that was not the salient point of that play.
And he may have had political issues with talking about whether or not to have a king or a queen. If he had said king or queen, or in this case king, then he would have been making a political statement about Republicans versus
Royalist versus
royalists, and that may have been a little bit problematical in his day.
Actually, not yet.
Ah,
It's
okay.
another 100 years before that became problematical. I think he tried his best not to bore the audience with what is imperator, what is dictator, and just put in that crown that is offered, the laurel wreath that is offered to, and then have Caesar explain to people why he did put it by and why he put it by.
And he declined it again.
And then Shakespeare has another set of people explain it to yet another set of people what happened and their reaction to it, and you get the gist of why it is important from that. And that's really, I mean, Shakespeare is very smart script writing, of course. But you could take the Julius Caesar play and modernize all the text and do it as a movie right now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It'd be great.
Yeah. We're up for it. There is a Julius Caesar with Marlon Brando.
Yes.
And
that's the Shakespeare one, yes.
Yeah, they do the Shakespeare, but they cut.
Yeah, of course, because he's wordy.
They have 2 hours, but they put the right things in, and it's before this, I think it's 1950, 49.
No, 53.
53. Okay.
53.
So it's in this era, but it's a black and white as opposed to a lot of these other films that we've been discussing. Color.
Because they were worried of the Shakespeare. Because they're doing the Shakespeare language, and that's a little bit niche. They did put in Marlon Brando. Brando was not really famous yet. He was getting there, but they put in James Mason. And John Gielgud, because straight from the stage. He was completely unknown in Hollywood because he just came straight from the stage. And Marlon Brando came from the stage, but from the American stage. Yeah. So they were there as stage actors. Marlon Brando as a hopefully new star that they were trying to do that, and James Mason as the old guard.
Yeah.
And
he was, and everybody thought that they were the main character. And in fact, they are. I would say that Brutus and
Cassius are the main. Brutus is
Cassius. Cassius.
Brutus and Cassius Brutus and Cassius have their plots, and then you have Mark Antony and Caesar. Caesar on the side.
I was saying Brutus and Mark Antony are
the main
together. Both of them are
two separate plots.
Mains.
Yeah,
and they both have to be kick-ass actors to pull it off.
Yes.
Especially Mark Antony, because it's just a very weird role.
Mark Antony has to do a lot of stuff on his own, and that's why I'm saying Brutus and Cassius do a lot of stuff against each other, so you have something to play off.
And Marlon Brando can do that.
Yes.
I watched it, and I was like, the moment he has that, he does the "they are honorable men" speech, and he turns around and he goes, and he turns to the camera, and you see this smile. You know, he's got them.
He's got them.
And I was like, okay, this is absolutely brilliant, because he doesn't have, like you said, he doesn't have a Cassius to bounce off of, to go, hey, I did that brilliantly, and, what did you think? No, he's doing it all by himself. And half the time there's an actor who is play acting because the character is play acting, because he's trying to manipulate everybody.
Yeah. And that version
so good.
We may do one. I may do one about the entire Julius Caesar franchise of films and stuff. But
there are not too many of them for Julius Caesar.
Maybe 4 or 5.
Oh, okay. Right.
Not all of the main stuff. But the fun thing about the 53 movie, because they are now so used to, starting to get used to doing all this Roman stuff, and yes, it should have been in color, and 2 years later it would have been in color, but they have the locations. I think they are also at Cinecitta, because they're not at Cinecitta.
No, it was all in California.
But still, they have all the stuff set up there.
Yeah, they found some really interesting setups. You can kind of get the Western feel, like there were some Western locations for it.
I think you're right. Yeah.
But they tried really hard with what seems to be a limited budget, because the actual fighting the armies fighting with each other, they minimized that down to the absolute minimumist, which they wouldn't have done if they had proper budget, because they did love and they would have had color.
And these are historical. I mean, the Shakespeare one is of these things that we were talking about, which is all the Bible stuff. But even the Bible stuff, the most historical, factual, accurate thing is the Shakespeare. He actually looked at the only thing. I looked at what history is actually like, and the Shakespeare version of this play specifically. And other than that, he messed around with the timeline a little bit of when stuff is happening, especially at the end with the battles, because it took years, and he sort of stuffs it together in a matter of months or weeks.
Yeah, but he does make it arduous on the people.
But that is like one event happens one day and then 2 days later the other event happens. No, there was months between them.
But it
other than that, it's pretty much accurate. That's what I'm saying. And I do the Robe films try to put in what actual history. Yes. Roman history, they try to be accurate with Caligula and with Claudius, and then I don't know even what they do with the big fishermen. Do they do anything Romans?
Oh yeah, Herod Antipas and Herod Antipas, there's a Roman faction and they were named, and there's a Roman storyline there that I didn't do in my review. Because it was so sidelined, and Caesarea is in it. The
location.
The location is in it, and it has a point that they are there. The Romans are stationed there, and the prince that comes after Princess Farah to help her or to rescue her, depending on what's needed. He gets captured by the Romans and gets flung into jail at Caesarea for the longest time. So our heroine has to take care of herself. The thing is that Caesarea is an actual location.
Yeah, and it sounds like what you're saying is it fits with what I know about the period. So I think it probably fits all together.
Whether or not Caesarea had already been built, I'm not quite sure. In 30 AD. I think that was like...
There would have been some sort of battlements or stuff like that.
It could have been smaller Caesarea than when you go there now, which we did. It's big and it's very cool.
So it probably would have been just a stockade Caesarea at the end, but there would have been settlement there.
Yeah, and that's literally all they're saying is that the Romans are stationed there, and you cannot get in or out without their permission.
So that sounds like it's accurate.
They ruled the region, and that was what everybody had problem with.
I think that it is important if you're going to do a historical movie of this era is that you fit to the history. And I know that sounds a little bit, of course, but sometimes these movies think, we can do higgledy-piggledy what we want. Especially things like the Vikings, because you know less, then you can use higgledy-piggledy, do what you want. But you have to stick to, especially now. Now, if you start to make a movie of this type, now you make sure that get every information that you have of this time and put it in, because people are going to pick it apart. Yeah. I mean, we're excusing a lot of these older movies because it's 1950 fill in, and we know a little bit more now. And they have an agenda. Their agenda is to make for this Robe movies is to make Lloyd C. Douglas, to make religion, and then history comes third place. But they did it right.
Yeah, but there was also another agenda. One of the agendas was, because of the HaysCode. These movies exist because of the HaysCode. The only way they could put debauchery, decadence and all of that stuff,
but it's still
on the screen is to say, we're going to show how depraved the Romans were. See? Depravity. And then
but it's all,
we'll juxtapose it against our heroes, who are going to be virtuous Christians, and so we can root for our heroes, even if in Demetrius and the Gladiators he spends about a third of the movie having fallen off his faith because of life has slapped him around too hard, and really you can't blame him. I feel like I was a little harsh on him in my review, because I was thinking, no, but he really he was being so abused through the entire thing,
but
even before the whole thing starts.
But the depictions of the 1950s are still, even the debauchery is sanitized, because then
very sanitized.
Because then you go to a Gladiator and do the one film that you should not be watching, which is the 300, is not sanitized in that way, because they talk in the Quo Vadis, they talk, and they even show the Christians being fed to the lions, and still that's a sanitized version.
But there's also the banquets and the
all sanitized.
The bacchanalia.
They are
very sanitized, because the women are still wearing enough to cover themselves. There's the ladies of pleasure are going around, and they are just sprawling over the guys. And nowadays that would be like the debauchery episode of The Boys.
They implied everything, and now they feel you shouldn't imply, you should just show. And that's why we can't watch a Gladiators anymore, because it's going to be so repulsive. And we're still interested in Romans, but I've seen Gladiator, and it's very, very harsh. And yes, it was very harsh, but a Quo Vadis also shows that it was very, very harsh without showing all the gore.
Yeah. So can we actually learn something from these older movies? Is like, can we tell these sprawling, big, epic stories and say, yes, this is a harsh world, without automatically making it a 16 plus or 18 plus movie?
I think you could, but I don't think the world is going to be doing that.
No, I don't think so either.
Because
maybe that's why I come back to these every once in a while, because it's like, I really enjoyed that, and I do like to see Romans and the Greeks and
the points that these make in these movies, that these civilizations had rotten problems without being pushed with your face into the rotten problem while it's rotting.
Well, and the thing is also to say, come back to the first 5 minutes of the Robe. It's in there. It's all explained. Yeah. We are now top heavy. We have gone beyond what is actually humanistic to deal with the world. And I'm not sure that anything before that was any better, but they've certainly not improved on it. They've just got a lot more wealthy.
They got a lot bigger and a lot louder, yeah.
Yeah. And so it takes a good many centuries, millennia, I would say, before we get any form of civilization that's higher than that. Probably Renaissance. And there's also a whole bunch of Renaissance movies.
Yeah.
And TV series.
Yeah. And they all have their own issues, and I think that's probably where we should probably leave it.
Yeah, well, we'll stop there, because...
So, Roman epics, that's the thing?
I still enjoy them.
Yeah, me too, me too. But modern ones, maybe not so much. Anyway, that's my opinion.
And my opinion.
And we're sticking to it.